Bridezilla Saga bring to you by Lazy Noob AI. Hi guys, I've got a story to share that has been quite the roller coaster. Buckle up. So, my brother Andrew, ever the romantic, decided to get engaged to his girlfriend of 3 months, Helen. Yes, 3 months. He asked me, his little sister Jamie, to help with the wedding preparations because, family obligations. Helen seemed nice at first, but boy, did that change quickly. Start with the dress drama. Helen wanted the perfect wedding dress, and Andrew thought I had a knack for fashion. Spoiler, I don't. She dragged me to every bridal shop in the city, each outing more stressful than the last. Helen's standards were impossibly high. If a dress was slightly off-white or the lace pattern didn't match her exacting vision, it was a disaster. I remember one shop where she tried on a dress that looked stunning, fit her like a glove, and sparkled in all the right places. But Helen found fault with a tiny, almost invisible bead on the hemline. She launched into a tirade that had the sales assistant on the verge of tears. The dress hunt became a daily nightmare. It wasn't just the dress's color or beadwork that set Helen off. The entire experience seemed designed to test my patience. At one boutique, she found a dress that she claimed was the one, only to change her mind 20 minutes later when she found a slightly better one in the next shop. The sales assistants would exchange nervous glances as soon as we walked in, whispering warnings to each other about the incoming storm. Helen's meltdowns became legendary, with her screeching about the lack of options or the incompetence of the staff. I tried to calm her down, suggesting we take a break and maybe try again later, but she was relentless. The whole ordeal was exhausting, and I found myself dreading the words, "Let's go dress shopping." Next came the alterations. Helen demanded custom changes that made the dressmaker's eyes bulge in disbelief. One seamstress nearly quit after Helen insisted on having the dress completely restructured to match an idea she'd seen on Pinterest. Each fitting was an event in itself, with Helen micromanaging every stitch and seam. The stress of it all was starting to get to Andrew, too. He saw the strain it was putting on me and tried to step in, but Helen wouldn't hear of it. It was in those stuffy, tension-filled fitting rooms that I realized I couldn't do this anymore. Watching Helen berate professionals and throw tantrums over the smallest details made me question why I was even helping. Finally, after another particularly grueling day of dress shopping, I told Andrew I was done. He saw the exhaustion in my eyes and, to my relief, understood. I just couldn't stand Helen's behavior any longer. Next up was the venue. The venue nightmare. Next up was the venue. Helen had her heart set on a lavish outdoor wedding at this exclusive estate known for its stunning gardens and picturesque views. The problem? The estate was fully booked for the next 2 years. This didn't sit well with Helen. She was adamant that this was the only place where she could possibly have her dream wedding. Nothing else would do. She demanded that the owners reschedule someone else's wedding to accommodate hers. I kid you not. The owners, professional as they were, politely declined, stating that it wouldn't be fair to the other couples who had already booked their dates. Helen's response was nothing short of a meltdown. She screamed, ranted, and even threatened to leave a scathing review online. I stood there, trying to mitigate the situation, suggesting other venues that were just as beautiful. There was a lovely botanical garden nearby, a charming lakeside retreat, even a historic mansion with a stunning ballroom. But each suggestion was met with disdain. Not good enough, she'd snap, her voice laced with frustration. The whole process was a nightmare. We visited at least a dozen different venues, each one a new battleground. Helen would find faults in everything, the lighting, the layout, the color of the chairs. At one venue, she complained that the trees weren't the right shade of green. I was beginning to think we'd never find a place that would meet her impossible standards. Andrew was stuck in the middle, trying to keep the peace between his fiancée and his sister, and it was tearing him apart. Then came the budget discussions. Helen had expensive tastes and no regard for financial limitations. She wanted top-tier everything, catering, decorations, flowers, you name it. When I tried to gently remind her that weddings could be beautiful without breaking the bank, she accused me of trying to sabotage her special day. It was around this time that I noticed Andrew's patience starting to wear thin. He'd quietly suggest compromises, only to be met with outbursts and accusations. One particularly painful memory was a visit to a charming countryside vineyard. The place was idyllic, with rows of grapevines, a cozy reception hall, and stunning sunset views. But Helen complained about the gravel paths, claiming they would ruin her designer heels. She demanded they pave the paths for her wedding. The vineyard owner, while polite, firmly stated that it wasn't feasible. Helen stormed out, and I followed, trying to calm her down. It was hopeless. After weeks of venue hunting, I reached my breaking point. Helen's relentless demands, combined with her complete disregard for anyone else's feelings or opinions, were more than I could handle. I told Andrew I had to step back. He saw the toll it was taking on me and understood. I couldn't keep enabling Helen's behavior, especially when it was affecting my relationship with my brother. Now, Helen's next demand? A guest list. A guest list of 300 people. Yes, you heard that right. Not only was this way beyond what any venue could realistically handle, even if we found one that met her standards, but it was also a logistical nightmare. Andrew and I tried to reason with her, pointing out that we should aim for a more manageable number. But Helen was having none of it. If they really love us, they'll make it work, she snapped as if everyone she'd ever met would move mountains for her wedding. The list itself was a disaster. Helen included distant relatives she hadn't spoken to in years, co-workers she barely knew, and friends of friends she thought would bring the right vibe to the wedding. When Andrew suggested trimming the list, Helen accused him of not caring about their special day. The tension between them was palpable, and I felt stuck in the middle. I still remember one evening vividly. We were sitting around the dining room table with stacks of invitation cards, trying to make sense of the mess. Helen, naturally, had final approval on every name. Each time we suggested cutting someone, she'd come up with a dramatic reason why they just had to be there. It was like watching a director casting the most chaotic movie ever made. The seating plan was even worse. Helen wanted to micromanage who sat with whom, ensuring that every table had the perfect mix of guests. This meant that people who barely knew each other were assigned to the same table simply because Helen thought it would look good in the photos. Family dynamics were ignored, and long-standing friendships were disrupted, all for her aesthetic vision. One day, after hours of listening to Helen rant about how our family friends wouldn't fit her color scheme, I finally snapped. I pointed out that this wasn't some grand theatrical production, but a wedding meant to celebrate love and unity. Helen accused me of trying to ruin her day on purpose, and the argument that followed was intense. I could see Andrew's face, caught between supporting his fiancée and standing up for his sister. Things came to a head when Helen decided we needed to send save the date cards to her extensive list, which included people she'd met once at a party. The cost of this alone was staggering, and Andrew and I tried to explain the financial burden. Helen's response was to throw a fit, claiming we were sabotaging her dream wedding. By then, it was clear to me that Helen's vision was more about impressing others than actually celebrating her relationship with Andrew. I couldn't deal with the constant emotional manipulation and the impossible demands. I told Andrew I had to step back from wedding planning. He saw the toll it was taking on me, and though it was a tough conversation, he understood. I couldn't keep enabling Helen's behavior, especially when it was affecting our family dynamics. I sat down with Andrew and explained everything: the tantrums over the wedding dress, the impossible venue demands, the absurdly long guest list, and Helen's complete disregard for anyone's feelings but her own. He listened quietly, his face a mix of exhaustion and frustration. It was clear he was torn between his love for Helen and the escalating chaos she was creating. Andrew thanked me for being honest and apologized for the strain it had put on me. It was a relief to be understood, but it didn't make the situation any less complicated. The family, however, didn't see it that way. They accused me of abandoning my brother during one of the most important times of his life. Every family gathering turned into a battleground, with relatives questioning my loyalty and integrity. It was like they had blinders on, seeing only the surface of Helen's charm and none of the turmoil beneath. Meanwhile, Andrew and Helen's arguments grew more frequent and more intense. They clashed over every detail, from the color scheme to the seating arrangement. Helen insisted on extravagant expenditures, pushing the budget far beyond what Andrew could afford. Their relationship, which had once seemed passionate and whirlwind-like, was now plagued by constant tension and conflict. Despite the growing rift, they decided to press on, determined to make it work. Or rather, Helen was determined to have her dream wedding no matter the cost. I watched from the sidelines, supporting Andrew as best as I could without getting drawn back into the drama. It was painful to see him so stressed and unhappy, but he reassured me that he understood my reasons for stepping away. The weight of the upcoming wedding was taking its toll, and I could only hope that he would find the strength to confront the reality of his situation. Fast forward to 3 days before the wedding. It was supposed to be the final stretch, final fittings, rehearsal dinners, last-minute details. Instead, it turned into a scene straight out of a drama series. Andrew came home early from work one day, hoping to surprise Helen with a small gift, a gesture of love to ease the tension between them. What he walked into was nothing short of devastating. Helen, in their living room, was locked in an intimate embrace with Mike, Andrew's best friend. The shock hit Andrew like a freight train. He stood frozen, watching the two people he trusted most betray him in the most personal way. The room fell silent as Helen and Mike realized they'd been caught. Helen's face turned pale, while Mike looked like a deer caught in headlights. Andrew's heart shattered as he struggled to process the scene unfolding before him. It turned out that Helen and Mike had known each other long before she met Andrew. Their relationship had been ongoing, hidden beneath the veneer of her engagement. The revelation was a bitter pill to swallow. Andrew confronted them, demanding answers. Helen, in a rare moment of vulnerability, confessed that she had been seeing Mike all along, but had fallen for Andrew's charm and stability. It was a twisted confession that did nothing to ease the pain. The fallout was immediate. Andrew called off the wedding, the invitations were rescinded, and the elaborate preparations halted. The news spread like wildfire through the family and friends, leaving a trail of shock and disbelief. Helen's true colors were finally revealed to everyone, and the sympathy quickly shifted to Andrew. Mike was ostracized from the group, his betrayal cutting deep into the bonds of friendship. Andrew took time to reflect and heal, leaning on the support of those who truly cared about him. He found solace in the fact that he had dodged a bullet, even though the betrayal stung deeply. The experience taught him valuable lessons about trust and self-worth. As for Helen, she disappeared from our lives, and her dreams of a grand wedding and social admiration were shattered. It was a harsh end, but one that brought necessary closure. Andrew eventually moved on, finding someone who loved and respected him genuinely. And me? I was just glad my brother saw the truth before it was too late. Thanks for sticking with the saga. Remember, sometimes the toughest times lead to the biggest revelations. Thanks for listening.
See you next video.